Hello and welcome back. I cut off the last video. So the biggest thing that you need to pay attention to when it comes down to it is when a person is operating under that spirit, that they are resistant because they are dealing with a heavy spirit of pride. Pride it's a scripture that talks about a stiff-necked people. When a person is operating in a spirit of pride, pride can come in multiple forms. Pride can come in anger, where a person gets irritated every time you want to talk about something in a positive manner. Pride, and that's usually the narcissistic person that tries to gaslight you. Now, gaslighting is another thing, that when a person is trying to gaslight you, they actually are trying to make you think you're crazy by turning the conversation from themselves to you in such a way to make you start to think in a manner that you actually start to think you're crazy, because they're operating in a spirit of confusion, because they need to deflect what was happening away from themselves and back onto you. Okay. Then another way is the spirit of narcissism, that when it operates, there's no way to positively get that person to agree with you. It's never going to happen. You can do everything in the most positive, most calm, most whatever it is. And they realize that you're trying to do everything to keep the peace in the situation and to satiate whatever it is that's irritating them. And they purposely continue to operate that way because there's nothing about that spirit that is going to be satiated by you trying to appease that spirit. Nothing, because it's operating under a specific type of spirit. And how do I know? I've dealt with it a million times before. There are particular people in my life, I can name them literally, that operated under this spirit. And this spirit always seeks a people pleaser, because when a person that operates in people pleasing, until they come to a point where they no longer desire to people please, they will, one, never be able to defeat the spirit, because of the fact that it's always going to push that person's boundaries because it knows it has none. Okay? That person will never have boundaries because they always want to please. But a person that operates in boldness and a person that operates with boundaries has the ability to say, no, I'm not going to do that. No, I'm not going to do that. And the best way to satiate or to, get a person operating under the spirit of narcissism, and everybody calls it a spirit of narcissism. It's not a spirit of narcissism. It's actually the spirit of Leviathan that stems from pride. And you usually see the Jezebelic spirit attached to this at all times. Jezebel, you will see the Jezebelic spirit attach itself to a man in this way, and the narcissist will attach itself to a woman. But all of them are operating under the spirit of Leviathan, okay? Leviathan is a spirit that tries to twist communication. Like I just said, it twists the communication in order to gaslight you and misconstrue the message. So you could be saying something very clearly in a positive manner, and that person is going to turn it in a way that is not the way that it's trying to be perceived. So when the person is operating in that spirit, you're not going to get through to them. And it's about causing, confrontation And it's a lot of people call this the madman spirit, where its entire goal is to bring about confrontation, and it's a word that starts with an O that I'm trying to think of that is slipping my mind. Um, Offense. It wants to bring about offense between the two people. I know when the spirit is coming in, because what it does is it tries to drive a wedge between something that's going peaceful. Because I see it happen all the time, especially with me and my dad. We'll be having a peaceful time, peaceful time, peaceful time, peaceful time, and then I'll start to see the trigger points that I know that spirit's trying to come in. Whether something will occur that starts to frustrate my dad. And then once he's frustrated, he'll start to pull on his triggers. He'll drink something, he'll do something, so on and so forth. And then after a couple of days of this, then you start to see the spirit of anger and bitterness come in, which then leads directly into that narcissistic spirit taking over. And I've noticed right now that it's a spirit of mockery that's happening, where it's the spirit of narcissism, where, for instance, and this is a key thing, be careful of this as well, that that spirit is in operation. What it will do is, oh, I'm buying something. Hey, you want some too? I'm like, oh yeah, okay, fine. It's like, he paying for it, blah blah blah. He offered, right? Then turn around as soon as the order is made or the thing is done, then they'll say, oh well, if you offered, and now you're operating an acute accusation towards me because after you offered. And they always do this. It's one of the key factors in a person operating in a spirit of narcissism, that they will offer something, and seemingly out of kindness, they're like, oh, get what you want, get what you want. And after you do that, they'll turn it around on you. But you got to see when they're operating in this spirit. But you know what? I'm not even fazed by it, because of the fact that I already know I have been praying against the spirit of fear and anxiety, and within 24 hours of him acting like this. So it's like, when you are praying for certain things, understand the spirits that are going to come out in a way of attack as soon as you come out of consecration. Okay, it's just I don't even know why we act surprised when we see it, but it's the truth. It's that element. It's not even the fact that you act surprised when you see it. It's the fact that you fall into a level of irritation, because it's like, you really came back again. Let's just have a clear, honest moment here. Spirit came back again. It's like, really? You think that I didn't notice you? You thought that, what we doing here? Every time you come, I pray against you. Here you are. You get what I'm saying? So, yeah. So, the spirit of narcissism will always try to demean, gaslight, make you think you crazy, all of these kinds of things, in order to mess with your head. And if you're not strong mentally and you don't have a spirit of discernment, you'll fall into the trap every single time, because you don't have a level of clarity to realize, oh, I see you. But you also have to realize you can't fight that spirit. It says in the word that that spirit is defeated by Jehovah Symbiote. Jehovah Symbiote is the God that fights your battles. God killed Leviathan in the Bible. Okay? What you can do is defuse it. How do you defuse it? I was listening to a gentleman the other about 4 months ago, the last time the spirit came at me. And the person said, you come into a recognition, letting the person operating in his spirit feel heard. Then you make your statement. Then you turn it and say, but you turn it and address what they're projecting at you. Okay? When you address what they're projecting at you, I have immediately seen that spirit literally deflate. But you must do it intelligently, and you can't do it aggressively. You do it aggressively, they're going to come back at you, and you will end up in a bigger issue than you were before you even came. You got to show them themselves. And some of them, they may be willing to receive what you show them. But you first must address, I heard what you said. I take your advice, but then turn the situation around and show them a mirror of themselves. Okay? And they'll usually diffuse. Keep doing that enough, they'll stop. Because they realize, I can't get through this way. And honestly, it's not them. It's the spirit operating through them. How do I know? Because I can have a conversation with my dad when he's not operating under that spirit, and we have no issues. But when I see the entry point come in, I'm like, oh, get revved up. It's about to be a confrontation for some reason. So why did I bring all that up? Mindset. Battlefield of the mind. All of that was mental. How was that a battlefield of the mind? Well, let's see. The person that's operating in gaslighting is turning you into a person that thinks that you crazy because they give you either open-ended questions to make you question yourself, or, like I said, they turn the scenario around, and after they've asked you something, turn around and make it your fault. So it's a very mental thing. And if you constantly live with a person that operates like that, it can really drive you up a wall. So either you're going to diffuse them, or you're going to be constantly driven up a wall. Why? Because it's pushing your boundaries. A person that operates in a level of narcissism, if they feel that they can't fight you, if they feel like, oh, they on my tricks, one, they're going to lash out. Because once they figured out that you figured them out, they got to lash out, because that's the only way that they feel like they can regain control, because they want to draw in a spirit of fear and make you fearful of them. So by lashing out, threatening through threats, meaning threatening your security, your home, your finances, and it's another one that I can't think of off the top of my head, because it's a security, roof over your head, finances, and it's a fourth one, that if they threaten that, they can get you to subdue. Then it's another where your physical body, I think, is the last, because they will try to literally threaten to hurt you physically, because it's happened to me before. It was a woman who literally, she got on my nerves so bad, because I'd already recognized the spirit she was operating under. And I tell you, she butted me up in the chest. Like, she was just a little bit shorter than me, and about 65 years old. She literally was foaming at the mouth. That's how bad this spirit operates. And you have to be careful, because a person that's operating in a spirit like this is how you end up with a situation like we saw that happened to that woman over there in, where was it, Mexico, who got killed by her friends. Them They were operating in the spirit of a narcissist. And probably each and every one of them had a different form of it. But she didn't recognize it. And it came down to their jealousy, because that's the other part of it, a spirit of jealousy. That's where that Jezebelic spirit comes in. And as soon as whatever is done, they go back to normal. They won't. This is how you, and some people will say, well, that's not realistic. How are you saying that a person can do that? You ever heard a person say that they were blinded by rage? And you've seen court cases won millions of times where they were blinded by the spirit of rage. Meaning they suddenly came over by a spirit of anger. This is that spirit of Cain that we see happen. Cain and Abel. Because they say that Cain killed Abel and split because of jealousy. That level of anger rose up and caused them to kill. But as soon as they come out of that space, it's like, what do you mean? What happened? I don't know what happened. Lord, do you want me to say it? The reason I know it is because I've seen it in myself happen twice. It happened 2 times when I was 10 and when I was 15. I attacked somebody that was close to me. And just as easily as it came over me, it was gone. And this was before I became Christian. I didn't start following the Lord until I randomly followed God between 18 and 25, but I didn't really give my life to God until about 27. But now, coming into the understanding that I have of God, I recognize certain spirits, and literally you will feel the spirit come over you. The same thing happens when a person is operating in a spirit of a love spell. You will feel the spirit of, it's that cloud 9 feeling come over you. You can either choose when that spirit comes over you to reject or give into it. Most people give into it because they don't even realize that that's what happened. But because I've dealt with these things, and the Lord showed me after I came into full alignment with God, He made me look back at my past in certain situations. This is how I can also recognize the spirit of suicide, the spirit of depression, so on and so forth. I've seen other people deal with the spirit of depression. It's a very sneaky spirit. And a lot of it is, some of it is dietary, some of it is stuff that you need to deal with deliverance-wise. Because 9 times out of 10, when you're dealing with a spirit of depression, there's depression and there's oppression. And a lot of it comes from a space of control. Meaning that if you're in depression, most likely you're operating in a spirit of, you feel like you should have more control of a situation than you do. And you're depressed because you can't get the situation to move in the direction in which you wanted to, because you're operating in the spirit of pride. So you end up in a spirit of depression because you're not relinquishing control back to God. So that level of control, God is depressing you and allowing you to be depressed because He wants you to relinquish control and give it back to Him. Now, oppression is when the devil is trying to push you down, delay you, prevent you from moving forward, derail you, all of these kinds of things. 2 different spirits in operation. Feels the same. It's a spirit of heaviness that will come upon you, and it don't feel when the devil's trying to do it, or when the enemy's trying to derail you, deter you, hinder you, obstruct you, uh, prevent you from moving forward in any way, he's trying to get you to collapse. So he's pressing you down with a weight of heaviness that doesn't feel right. Sometimes you'll feel a level of dizziness that doesn't feel, you'll feel like, okay, this is the best way I can describe it. When you're dealing with a spirit of oppression and witchcraft is involved, you'll feel like you're sinking. You ever feel like it's not faint. You don't feel faint. It feels like your whole body, you'll be standing up and you'll feel like you're sinking to the floor. You literally feel like you're sinking to the floor with a level of dizziness. It won't feel natural to your body. It's like, what is this? That's witchcraft. Ask me how I know. So I've seen it happen. It's happened to me multiple times before. And when I start speaking in tongues, breaking things in the spirit, it goes away. Because it turns it back to where whoever sent it towards me. And I knew to this. I knew to this at all. Where were we? Battlefield of the mind. So you're dealing with a lot of mental stuff. I will probably end up attempting to turn this into a podcast because there's so much more I can talk about, and I can bring in a whole lot more scriptures for this, because we've probably been talking about this for about 50 minutes now already. Between 40 and 50 minutes. But yeah, a lot of this stuff is mental, and you have to first be willing, with the battlefield of the mind, is you got to be willing to see the parts of you that need to change. Once you can see the parts of you that need to change, you'll be able to grow from there. But you got to recognize when you're operating in pride, recognize when you're operating in jealousy, recognize when you're operating, because guess what? What the enemy likes to do is he likes to project upon you his issues. So if you're praying against fear and anxiety, if you have somebody that has open doors anywhere near you, this is why they tell Christians you should probably not be friends with people that do not have the Spirit of God in them, because the enemy is going to use them like a revolving door. Every time you're in warfare, those people are going to be the ones that are going to attack you first, because they still got open doors. And as long as they got an open door, the enemy's going to go right to them and say, oh, this one I can use, that's operating in a spirit of Leviathan. Let me use that person. And they will irritate and make that person go crazy. That is just prayed against spirit of fear and anxiety. They'll come again if you're praying, whatever it is you're praying against. I can pray against illness, sickness, and disease. The closest person to me got a weak spot. Guess what? That's the person that's going to get sick. I have never seen it not happen that way. It takes anywhere from 24 to 48 hours before that person that's closest to me gets attacked. Always. If they got an open door, then baby, please. That's the first thing that the enemy gonna do. First location they going. So I'm praying against it. Hits them. Why? Can't hit me, because I'm covered in the blood of Jesus. If you're a praying person, you need to cover yourself. You need to cover the people closest to you. Because whichever person you forget to cover that you're going to come into contact with, guarantee, the enemy going to use that person. Or I saw it happen this way once. I covered the person nearest me. They were fine. What happened? Somebody called them on their cell phone. When the person called them, they spoke something to them about something, and immediately the spirit on that person that called them jumped on them. I lie to you not, saw it happen directly in front of my face. You got to understand you're in a spiritual battle. not a physical one. And you got to protect your borders as tightly as you possibly can, because the enemy ain't playing with you. Not at all. Not for 1 second is he going to stop playing with you. This is why you hear a lot of people sit up there and say that marriage is hard, because they don't understand that, for one, they need to have conversation with their spouse. 2, they need to be in a heavy level of communication. 3, that person needs to have a level of spiritual wisdom about themselves, that they can see borders, barriers, and all kinds of stuff. They also need to know their barriers and borders so that they aren't allowing something into the marriage that's going to cause confusion between the two of them. Because your house should be your sanctuary. And the fact of the matter is, if one of y'all is in operation with a clarity with the Lord and the other one isn't, you're going to be in a fight. I literally saw this happen to somebody. The person was telling a story to us about the fact that they had a sibling that at the time was pregnant, and their spouse wasn't spiritually as aligned as they were. The wife was getting hit horribly with spiritual warfare during her pregnancy. And what was happening is the husband wasn't covering her, because he wasn't as spiritually aware as she was. And it wasn't until she called her sister, who actually was spiritually anointed, to cover her, that when the woman prayed for her, and it was funny because the very sister that needed to pray for her, she had been having nightmares, was trying to kill her, because the enemy did not want her to go to that sister. Battlefield of the mind. This ain't a game. This is no game. This is why I prayed to have the right God ordained people around me when the Lord leads me into marriage and when he leads me into pregnancy, because I already know what the Lord has shown me about my children. He already showed me that. And because of what he's shown me about my kids, I need, if I'm going to have prayer people around me, I need to have real godly ordained people that are going to cover me in prayer, because I do not need the enemy hitting me with all kinds of spiritual hits and illness and all kinds of stuff in my spouse or anything to come against me in order to bring about a spirit of confusion in my household. I was literally listening to Tiffany Montgomery the other day,